Hey there, McKay here from The McKay Show. Normally, we will have co-hosts and guests, but for the first episode of The McKay Show, I would like to introduce myself as the main host of this podcast, get to know a little bit about me and exactly why I started a podcast and how it can benefit other people, as well as learn things along the way. So to start off, I'm the oldest of five siblings. I'm number one. I have four younger siblings under me. I have Abby, Gracie, Matthew, and Nathan. I have two wonderful parents. I have been born and raised in Arizona and have had an excellent life, and I've been given all the tools I need to succeed. In high school, I predominantly was focused on sports. I played sports from the time I was 7 until the time I graduated high school. I focused mainly on football, but I loved basketball as well. I played a little bit of baseball, and I ran a little bit of track and also played volleyball. I met some of my best friends there, and it was an absolute time of my life. And the reason I got into doing things like media producing and anything finance related was because of a class I took my senior year in high school called entrepreneurship. And in this class, one of the first weeks we were there, we were given a pine cone. And our teacher simply said, take this pine cone, turn it into $1,000 by the end of the semester, and that's how you'll get an A in this class. And you had to play bigger or better. You had to trade from the pine cone. You had to make 3 or 4 trades without any monetary change of hands. And then you were able to sell and start making money and growing your business. And long story short, I traded my pine cone. I sold marshmallow guns after I had made my 4 or 5 trades. I made $150 from my marshmallow guns, and I was able to start a business called Instantgram. Basically, I made a Google form that all you needed to do was put your child's name, class, and the hour that you wanted this Instantgram delivered, and I would bring your kid a candy bar and note from you in class. This was mainly geared towards parents, or you could do it for friends of a friend. So that made quite a bit of money my senior year, and that's when I fell in love with business. But part of Instantgram that I'll never forget was the first day I left class early, a little earlier than I should have, and the parents were in line in the parent drive-thru and the parent pickup, and I started going out to these cars handing out flyers, and then nothing really happened, and I went home and sat on the couch. And while I was sitting on the couch, I heard this little cha-ching, and somebody had just Venmo'd me for an Instantgram that I had sold a few hours earlier. So that feeling of generating money from just an idea is something that I'll never forget. That experience in that class of entrepreneurship, I learned so much. We had guest speakers come in every week. Usually they were very successful people in different facets of life, whether it was financially or they'd accomplished an extreme goal, they were from the military or things of that nature. At that point, my passion has switched. My passion at that point before that class was purely football. I never wanted anything more than football, and that's all I really cared about. I was trying to play football in college, and I didn't really know what I was going to do after that. But that class, something changed in me. My passion changed from football to business. I had no idea. I think business is a super generic term, but I knew I loved creating something from nothing, or creating and making money from it and being able to be successful. And I also saw the freedom that these very wealthy individuals had, and that was something I really wanted to gain. After that, I left on a 2-year mission for my church, where I was able to serve in the country of Chile in South America. There I learned Spanish, and I was able to serve among the wonderful people there in Chile, and it was hands down the most incredible experience of my life. Unfortunately, my mission ended a couple months early due to the COVID outbreak, and I was sent home abruptly. About 10 days from the time the first COVID case hit Chile to the time I was home was 10 days. And it all happened extremely quickly. Nobody was expecting anything like that. But I didn't really have a choice. I accepted my terms. I came home, and my mission was over. I hadn't really planned much in my life until that point in my mission. So I got home, and my dad, who's a software developer, started recommending that with all the spare time that we have during COVID, to make apps. So he helped me. He found a contractor, and I was able to work with the contractor and help develop and oversee 2 to 3 different apps that are now published on the App Store. They're funny little apps that I was able to learn a lot from, and learned that not necessarily that I love programming, but I love the capabilities that programming or knowing how to program unlocks. Then, while I was home, late nights during COVID, not many people. There wasn't much to do. You couldn't really go outside, hang out with friends. It was very early. We didn't really understand the disease and the things that came with it, or the virus, I should say. And one of the most powerful questions I asked, I typed this into YouTube. I'll never forget this because this question is one of the reasons I'm responsible for being here on this podcast today. The question was, I had taken all my life savings and I said, what to do with X amount of money? And as soon as I typed that in, one of the very first people I saw was Graham Stephan. Graham Stephan is the king of finance when it comes to YouTube. He has the most subscribers on YouTube, and he talks anything from real estate, crypto, stocks, and finance in super broad ways. And then after that, I found this guy named Ep.1, where he started Instagram pages and started drop shipping and all of that stuff. So I began starting my Instagram pages as well. But what I learned from going back one step, what I learned from Graham Stephan was the power of investing in the stock market. Up to that point, as much as I had been around business for the last year before my mission, I never heard about the stock market or the potential that it had. I kind of just thought it was gambling. I thought people lost money in the stock market. And then my buddy Carson started a paper trading account, and he would tell me how much money he would have made if he had invested that much real money into the stock market. So then I got home, I started talking to my dad about it, and my dad and I started to continue to learn together. Obviously, he knew a lot of what about the stock market, but he hadn't really been practicing much in the stock market until that point. So I was able to ask my dad all the questions I had about the stock market, and he was able to usually answer them. Between him, Graham, and a couple of other YouTubers, I was able to gain a pretty substantial understanding of how the stock market worked and the power that could come from it. But then after I watched Graham Stephan, absolutely loved his stuff, but I was still wanting more. Watched Ep.1. I liked what he had, but he wasn't really scratching the itch I had about the stock market. Then I was introduced to somebody on YouTube by the name of Meet Kevin. And he takes these very in-depth, deep dives into the stock market that I absolutely love. Very specific stocks like Tesla, and that was the first one that mainly got me hooked. But he takes these popular stocks and or not even popular stocks, but stocks that he sees have potential. He'll do a deep dive into them on YouTube and explain why or why not he's going to invest into them. He'll explain warnings, pitfalls that are going to come ahead, and he actually has some pretty good predictions. But along with that, I stumbled upon Meet Kevin's real estate videos. And Meet Kevin has one of the biggest real estate portfolios of anybody that I've seen on YouTube. And he's very open and transparent about how much he makes from his real estate, how much he makes from his stocks. So I was immediately introduced and found this love for real estate and the stock market. But obviously, 21, straight off of a 2-year mission, I guess I was 20 at the time, I did not have a lot of money to put into the stock market or even into real estate. I was blessed. I had a very fortunate gift, and I did have a good chunk in savings, but I was really hesitant about what to do with it. I became quickly obsessed with what Meet Kevin, Graham Stephan, and all of these finance YouTubers offered. I had no idea that this world existed. I immediately fell in love with it. And then in the winter, I can't exactly remember which month, Meet Kevin posted a YouTube video about how much he actually made from YouTube. And there my mind was blown. I had no idea that YouTube paid the amount that it did for its content creators. And I obviously knew he had hundreds of thousands of subscribers at the time. But I fell in love with the idea. I did not know much about the stock market. I had very little experience in the stock market, but I knew that that was something that I wanted to try. So I quickly made some YouTube videos on a webcam and just some basic math about compound interest and how much you can make in 40 years, 60 years, and just different ways to save money. And nothing really happened. I made those 3 or 4 videos and kind of just stopped. It was fun creating, and I was kind of afraid to admit that I was making YouTube videos just because they were kind of silly and I was kind of embarrassed by it. The stigma of being a YouTuber was still kind of a stigma I didn't really want. Even though I'd seen how much potential these guys are, like Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan, how much they helped me and how much money they're making, I just felt like I could never convey to somebody that asked me what I wanted to do. I could never convey that. So then the time came where I had been home for a couple weeks, months, and it was time to look for a job. I had 3 or 4 interesting job offers I just didn't love and I didn't take. My dad just kept telling me to be patient and take the job that I really wanted. Well, then a few weeks later, a job opened up at an insurance place called Ep.1. And I was able to take a job there, and it was an amazing base pay. And I really liked the culture of the people, and I really enjoyed my team, and I enjoyed learning about insurance because I was 21. I'd never had to deal with insurance on my own. I was still claimed under my parents. I still am. But I was able to learn a lot about insurance and Medicare. And the base pay was amazing, and the hype that came from the commissions was unbelievable. And I started making this money from these commissions, and soon enough I'd worked at this place for multiple months and started building up a pretty good chunk into savings. And I didn't really know what I was going to do with all this savings that I had from after my mission and from what I'd saved up at Ep.1. And after weeks of watching Meet Kevin's videos with my dad about Tesla, my dad was extremely bullish on Tesla. Extremely bullish because he had recently purchased a car and just absolutely fell in love with it. My dad does not love very many monetary things, but he absolutely loves his Tesla Model 3. And he just said that there's no way that this car will not be the future of everything. And I'm such a firm believer in investing to things that you use. So obviously after using the car for a few months, I agreed. I couldn't fathom how this car would fail. So did a little bit more research into Tesla, but my dad ultimately told me to take a jump and put all of my savings into Tesla. And I was super nervous to do it at first. I was starting to gain a little bit more understanding of the stock market, but overall, I was super nervous about putting all of the savings that I'd worked really hard for and that I'd been blessed with and received as a gift towards putting it into Tesla. And at that time that my dad suggested me putting it into Tesla, it was at $300 a share post-split. Right now, Tesla's trading at around $750 a share. So that gamble was one of the biggest gambles of my life. And I did not think it was going to be that big of a gamble, but that money has doubled since I put it in. And I've just continually bought more and more Tesla. Tesla's my number one position, and it's just very difficult to catch. And then I started watching Graham Stephan's videos about diversification and the importance in doing that. So then I started buying a lot more VOO because I was terrified about how much money I had into Tesla and how much it had grown, and I knew I needed to balance it with a S&P 500 company. So I started investing to the S&P 500 company, but Tesla just kept running at that time. And then they announced I think it was a 3-to-1 or a 5-to-1 stock split. And so I can't remember it might have been a 4-to-1. But multiplying my shares by 4 and all the hype that comes around from a stock split, I just couldn't fathom it. I had caught a lucky break. It was extremely lucky. But what's not lucky is the fact that I kept buying different stocks and saving as much as I could. I decided not to move states. I was going to go move up to Utah for a semester to be with my friends, but I decided to stay home and live with my parents for 1 more month to be able to keep saving money and investing. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made, because not only was I able to save money and invest, but I was able to sit on the couch late at night with my dad and learn about the stock market, learn about real estate, because I had so many questions every night. And be able to make money and not have to worry about rent or groceries or anything like that. Spend 6 months at home with my parents. And when I decided not to move up to Utah, I decided to move out of my parents' house and move a little bit away, just kind of gain my independence again. It was kind of weird being on a mission for 2 years, going home, and then having to ask your mom permission for things again. It's an awkward transition. It's not an awkward transition, it's a transition. And so I wanted to get back to being independent because I knew eventually I would have to do that. And so after that, the amount of money I was investing had to go down a little bit just because I learned painfully that living on your own is a lot more expensive than we are prepared for. But I was still able to put some money into investing, put it into the S&P, buy Tesla, buy Apple, and just continue to build my portfolio and continue to learn about stock market and the real estate market. I was spending on average, while I was working, listening to YouTube 3 to 4 hours a day, probably listening to YouTube, just consuming all of the information I could. So I worked at that insurance job for a year, and then my dad runs a company, and I had suggested to my dad a couple of things about his company that he should look into. And finally I said, Dad, what do you think if I did this for a couple of weeks? And he was like, actually, I could really use you part-time. And then if you want, we can make a small agreement, and from part-time, we could work your way up. So that's what happened. It was a very difficult decision leaving that first job. I've never left a job before, and I hate using the term quit because it makes it sound like I was giving up, when in reality, I was leaving a job for a better opportunity. And so I took that opportunity with my dad to gain real-world experiences in a startup. So with that job came sales, marketing, as well as being an intern software developer, which is invaluable experience that you can't buy. While I was doing that, I also met a business partner, and she is a house flipper. And I went on a one house flip with her just to learn. I didn't ask her to pay me. I just asked for her to bring me along and teach me everything, because I learned so much on YouTube about the real estate market, and I just wanted to practice it a little bit. I didn't have quite enough money. I was actually looking in the middle, before all of that, while I was working at insurance, looking for a house. I was going to go buy an FHA loan and put a little bit down and live in it and rent it out when I left. But I didn't quite have the funds necessary to do that, and I didn't really want to sell my stocks because I was just trying to avoid selling my stocks at all costs, and I didn't have enough to pull for margin, so it didn't work out at that point. So I continued to talk to my business partner about house flipping, and then she called me one day and said that she found a house. She didn't quite have the capital for it at the moment. And she would like my help on it, and we'd agreed that we would split it 50-50, and so that was as close to gaining experience without having to put my neck on the line as possible. She put her neck on the line for the loan, the hard money loan, and I was responsible for the house flipping, the renovation costs and the labor and all of that. So I learned an incredible amount from that. We made some good money from that, and I was extremely happy and extremely blessed to be a part of that. And that all came at the perfect time. I ended up moving into a different house during that, and I'm able to house hack in this house where I can rent out the rooms and live very close to rent-free houses, or have to subsidize it very little, which is a huge blessing. And I learned a lot about being a landlord along the way, and the things that kind of YouTube doesn't teach you, just the small little details about real estate that YouTube necessarily can't teach unless you have experience. So all while doing this, I kept investing into the stock market. I just knew that and know that it will pay off. And I've grown this nest egg that I would have never in my wildest dreams thought would be possible. So then I started making YouTube videos a lot more seriously. And at first, it was very awkward, very uncomfortable in front of the camera. I still probably am a little bit awkward and uncomfortable in front of the camera. Sometimes my speech doesn't come out the way I want it to. I mispronounce words, or I don't say things I want. So that's why doing a podcast in one take is a little different for me, is because I'm used to short YouTube videos that I can cut and dice into any way. I can change what I say a little bit and bleep out like my mistakes and cut out my mistakes a little bit, but it's a little bit more raw, like a podcast. But this is a little bit more raw, and I kind of like it like that. You can see who I really am. So I started working for my dad's company, and I work for him part-time. But the cool part about working for him part-time is I can spend the afternoons working on house flips and working on YouTube, where I'm able to grow my YouTube channel. And I've absolutely fallen in love with YouTube. I love chasing views and chasing subscribers and reaching milestones. When you reach a milestone on YouTube, it is insane, because you look way back and you say, I can't believe I was at 56 subscribers. Oh, I can't believe I hit 150. I kept telling myself, oh, when you hit 100 subscribers, that's when you know that you've made it. I was like, okay, no, when you hit 200, you can say that. And now 300 subscribers later, I am still working as hard as I did when I had 1 subscriber. So that's why I love YouTube, is because it continues to push you to work as hard as you can to keep producing great content that people love. And you can tell if people love it by your views, your click-through ratio, how long people watch it. So it's pretty immediate feedback, pretty close to immediate feedback. And I've just absolutely fallen in love with it. And I've been racking my brain about how to make YouTube a viable business, not just relying off of YouTube ad revenue. And that's where this came along, this podcast. This podcast is part of this idea that popped into my head that I really think will be this business that I've been yearning to make. I've been wanting to make a business. I just had no idea. I absolutely love having part of my dad's company, because I can see the business aspect from him, and I can learn all the business things from him, and have real world experiences and build a successful startup while starting my own startup on the other side. And this company, there's no real name to it as of right now, but what I'm calling it is McKay Media. It's going to be a conglomerate of multiple different channels. Right now I have about 8 different ideas that I have listed out that I want to put under this umbrella of McKay Media. First is my personal YouTube channel, McKay Thomason, and second will be this podcast called The McKay Show, where I will have guests. I'll be able to interview different people that have been extremely influential in my life, and people that have side hustles, or people that I just want to get to know, or people that I think bring value to the world that I think YouTube needs to hear from. So that's my main goal with this podcast, is to put value out that I would personally want to listen to, and ask questions that I would personally want to hear, and interview people that I want to hear from, not in a selfish way, and then put it out for everybody else to see. So that's my goal for this podcast. Is I absolutely love creating content and all of the different things that come with it, the positive feedback. And honestly, the negative comments, as painful as they are to read, a lot of times they do provide positive feedback. Calling you out, saying, no, you're definitely wrong about this, or no, you're definitely not correct about this, or you sound kind of weird, your music's too loud. Just very positive. Even though it may not be positive criticism or constructive criticism, it's still criticism, and you can learn from it. Obviously, you don't want it to degrade you, which it's hard, because hearing people talk negatively about something that you worked really hard for is not the most fun thing to hear, but it's part of growing and part of learning. So that's my goal with this podcast. That's my goal with McKay Media. I'm extremely determined. This is something that I love. I wake up thinking about, I go to bed thinking about, but I'm also able to be exposed to marketing and advertising and programming through my dad's company that I work for during the day. I have the best of both worlds. This is going to be something that I feel will be successful, because I'm going to make it successful. And McKay Media will be an extremely large content producing company where we produce. The main mission of McKay Media will be to produce things that everybody can listen to. We will have a channel for everybody. We will also not publish things that we ourselves wouldn't want to listen to. So I hope that this has been insightful into who I am as a person. Again, my name is McKay Thomason. I will be the host of The McKay Show, and I promise normally I will have guests on here, and we will continue to build this set out the more we grow, and I'm extremely optimistic and excited about the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Go ahead, if you're watching this, go ahead and subscribe to The McKay Show. This will be something that I don't know the schedule for posting. It'll be at least once a week. But we'll see how much we can post more than that, because podcasts are a little bit more time consuming and a little bit more coordination. But I really appreciate you guys for watching, and go ahead and leave a like and also subscribe. It helps me learn what you guys do and don't like. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you next time.